Listen carefully. What I'm about to say will dismantle almost every illusion you've built about women, how they think, what they feel, and why they do what they do. You've been told you understand female psychology because you've watched a few videos, read a few books, maybe even quoted something about the female brain. But that's like claiming to know the ocean because you've seen a puddle. The truth is, most men don't understand women at all. And it's not because they're dumb or inexperienced. It's because no one ever taught them the truth. From childhood, you were programmed with a romantic lie. They gave you Disney fairy tales where love conquers all, told you women are mysterious creatures who need decoding, and rewarded you for being polite, patient, predictable. You were never shown how emotion, biology, and psychology actually weave together inside a woman's mind. So you grew up chasing clarity in a system that runs on chaos. Here's the first paradox. Understanding women is both simpler and more complicated than you think. Simpler because there are patterns, more complicated because you've been looking in the wrong direction. Instead of observing behavior, you've been memorizing words. Instead of watching what they do, you've been believing what they say. You know what's ironic? Men spend hours dissecting a single text message as if it's a secret code from the Pentagon, one emoji instead of 3. Okay, with a period. Theories emerge, panels form, friendships nearly collapse. Meanwhile, she's half asleep on her couch, Netflix running, the message already forgotten. You're constructing an entire psychological thriller in your head, and she's just finishing another episode of The Office. That's your first wake-up call. Women aren't sitting around analyzing your every move. They're not having secret conferences about your punctuation. Most of the time, they're simply reacting to how they feel in that moment. Feelings first, thought later. When that moment passes, so does the meaning you attach to it. I remember when I was 22, there was a girl on campus who seemed out of reach. Bright eyes, graceful, always surrounded by people. I spent weeks crafting the perfect approach. I learned her coffee routine, her favorite novels, even the brand of perfume she wore. By the time I finally spoke to her, I'd built a mental dossier that would shame the CIA. But life had other plans. That day, her cat was sick. Her mood, gone. Her energy, somewhere else entirely. Nothing I said mattered. 2 weeks later at a noisy party, I bumped into her again. I made some stupid comment about the music being too loud. She laughed. We ended up dating for 2 years. What changed? Certainly not my strategy, not my words. It was timing. Her emotional weather had shifted from storm to sunlight. That's when it hit me. Women's emotions are like seasons. You can't control the weather, only learn to dress for it. But here's where most men go wrong. They try to change the weather. They think if they just wear the right outfit, say the right words, make the right amount of money, they can force permanent sunshine. That's not how human nature works. A woman's openness to love, interest, or connection fluctuates with countless invisible variables. Her hormones, her stress levels, what she ate, how her boss spoke to her, whether her favorite show got canceled. You are one factor among thousands. That's not defeatist, it's liberating. Because once you stop trying to control the emotional climate, you can start to observe it. You become a reader of patterns, not a manipulator of moods. As the psychologist Carl Jung once wrote, when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside, as fate. In other words, when you stop fighting the storm, you finally see the pattern behind it. Here's the twist that unsettles most men. Even women don't fully understand their own psychology. Ask a woman why she's with her boyfriend and she'll give you reasons. He's kind, he's funny, he has a good job. Those are surface justifications. The real reason is often buried beneath awareness. It's like asking someone why they love chocolate. They'll say it's sweet, smooth, delicious. But the real explanation lies in brain chemistry, dopamine, serotonin, the comfort of childhood associations. Love and attraction work the same way. She feels first, explains later. This is what I call the retrospective story principle. Women experience emotion, then build a narrative around it. The story is not the cause, it's the translation. She feels drawn to someone, then constructs a logic to match. She feels turned off, then rationalizes why. The emotion arrives first. The explanation follows like an obedient servant. That's why trying to reason your way into a woman's heart never works. You can't PowerPoint your way into desire. You can't persuade chemistry with bullet points. You might be tempted to say, but I have a stable job, a good family, I'd treat her right. those are fine on paper. But desire doesn't read paper. It reads energy. Every man eventually faces this disillusionment. You meet a woman who claims she wants a man who's reliable, kind, and emotionally available. You become that man, and somehow she's not interested. Meanwhile, the same woman is drawn to someone who's careless, unpredictable, maybe even reckless. You sit there thinking, but she said. Yes, she did. But saying and feeling are two different languages, often spoken by different parts of the brain. The brutal truth is this: what women think they want and what their emotions respond to are rarely aligned. It's not hypocrisy, it's human complexity. The conscious mind constructs noble lists, the unconscious follows instinct. Just as someone might list healthy foods when they're full, but crave greasy pizza when they're starving, women's choices follow hunger, not ideals. And yet, here's where men trap themselves. By believing logic should govern attraction, they analyze cause and effect, expecting emotional consistency. But emotion doesn't obey equations, it obeys rhythm. To influence rhythm, you must first understand it, and to understand it, you must accept one fundamental law of psychology: feelings lead, logic follows. So, if women operate by emotional patterns rather than logical consistency, what happens when a man tries to navigate that landscape using only reason? Now that you understand emotions come before explanations, you can begin to see why logic rarely moves a woman's heart. You can list your achievements, demonstrate your devotion, even prove your compatibility by every rational metric, and still lose to the man who simply makes her feel. Because female psychology isn't governed by lists or logic, but by states. The state she's in determines the story she tells herself about you. This is what I call the emotional primacy principle. Feelings first, narrative second. It's the same mechanism that drives all human decision-making, but in women, it's amplified. Imagine she feels warmth and safety around you. She'll call you dependable, mature, a real man. But if she feels bored or restless, she'll describe you as too nice or just a friend. The label is just her mind translating emotion into language. It's not deceit, it's biology. Her brain seeks coherence, so it stitches logic onto emotion after the fact. As the writer Anis Nin once said, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. Attraction works that way. She doesn't choose based on logic, then feel. She feels, then chooses a logic that fits. This is why men who take women's words too literally end up disappointed. She might insist she wants a stable, gentle man who always listens. Yet the next week, she's obsessed with the man who barely texts her back. It's not duplicity. It's the distinction between conscious preference and unconscious desire. One is intellectual. The other is visceral. It's like asking someone what they'll eat tomorrow when they're not hungry. They'll describe something responsible, a salad, a smoothie. But when hunger hits, all those plans dissolve at the sight of fries. Attraction works on the same timeline. What she says she wants when she's calm and reflective often vanishes when desire takes the wheel. And this, right here, is where most men fall into the nice guy trap. They think attraction is a checklist, not a current. So they start performing kindness like it's a spell. They hold doors, send morning texts, remember birthdays. All good gestures, but done with expectation. The subtext becomes, I'm doing this so you'll want me. That's not generosity, that's negotiation. And women can feel that. I once had a friend, tall, successful, genuinely kind. The sort of man every woman claims to want. He dated this woman who, on paper, should have been perfect for him. He never argued, never forgot a date, never raised his voice. She ended up leaving him for a guy who was unemployed, moody, and occasionally disappeared for days. My friend was devastated. He couldn't understand. I did everything right, he told me. And he had. That was the problem. You see, when everything feels right, the emotional temperature drops. Predictability is comfort, but comfort kills desire. Women don't fall for consistency, they fall for intensity. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because strong emotions, even unpleasant ones, make them feel alive. The same psychological circuit that responds to excitement also lights up during conflict. That's why so many women say they hate drama but can't seem to live without it. It's stimulation, emotional caffeine. When you remove all friction, you remove the electricity. Being endlessly agreeable doesn't make her feel secure. It makes her feel unseen. Deep down, she wants to collide with you, not just coexist. When she tests you, disagrees, or pushes your buttons, she's not always trying to undermine you. Often, she's trying to find your edges to know whether your backbone is real or just borrowed. This is what psychologists call differentiation, attraction born from polarity. When two identities blur into one, energy fades. A woman wants to know she can lean into your strength without you collapsing or surrendering. If every opinion you hold bends the moment she frowns, she'll stop respecting you. Even if she still smiles, respect is the oxygen of desire. Without it, love suffocates. That's why neediness, the craving for her validation, is so destructive. The more you orbit her approval, the less gravity you have. Think of attraction like physics. The stronger your self-contained mass, the more naturally others gravitate toward you. The moment you revolve around her world, your pull weakens. Confidence is not arrogance, it's self-possession. But the nice guy trades it away piece by piece. He becomes a satellite, always available, always agreeable, always eager. He confuses loyalty with surrender, thinking devotion guarantees love. But women don't bond through comfort, they bond through emotion. Without contrast, there's no spark. Without uncertainty, there's no suspense. And without suspense, there's no story worth living. Men often misunderstand this and call women irrational. But there's method in that madness. Women crave emotion not for chaos itself, but because emotion signals depth, passion, frustration, excitement, even anger. All of it confirms that she's still alive inside the relationship. When everything is too calm, she feels invisible. That's why she'll stay with the man who challenges her and leave the one who worships her. Not because she wants to be mistreated, but because she wants to feel. Love without movement feels like death. The bad boy simply knows how to create emotional tension, the roller coaster that nice men spend their lives smoothing over. Here's the irony. Many women don't consciously realize this. They'll call that excitement chemistry, energy, connection. But beneath those words lies a psychological truth. Emotional contrast sustains desire. So, if being endlessly kind, logical, and available fails to create attraction, what does? If stability breeds boredom, what actually awakens emotion in women? The answer lies in the currency of all relationships: emotional value. Most men try to win women over with logic, provision, or consistency, but women bond through emotion, not reason. The men who understand this stop trying to convince and start to connect. Here's what most men never learn. When a woman shares her problems with you, she's not asking for a solution. She's seeking resonance. When she says, "I had a terrible day," and you jump in with advice, well, maybe you should talk to your boss or change your schedule. She doesn't feel heard. She feels dismissed. To her, emotions are experiences to be shared, not puzzles to be solved. That's why emotional validation is far more powerful than logic. You don't need to agree or fix anything. All she wants is acknowledgement. Something like, "That sounds exhausting. I can see why you're upset." Simple empathy, not intellectual analysis, bridges the emotional gap. As psychologist Marshall Rosenberg said, empathy is a respectful understanding of what others are experiencing. But here's the part that frustrates most men. Women often speak in subtext. They don't always mean exactly what they say, at least not in the literal sense. When she says, "It's fine," it often means it's not fine. When she says, "I don't care," she probably does. When she says, "We need to talk," it usually means a storm is coming. She's not being manipulative, she's assuming you can read the emotional cues beneath her words. Women communicate in layers: tone, body language, rhythm, pauses. It's a code built from emotional nuance, not vocabulary. Men, on the other hand, are direct. We say what we mean. That's why misunderstandings between the sexes are so common. A man hears the words, a woman hears the feeling. And when those two are out of sync, conflict brews. This emotional orientation extends into sexuality. Men are like switches, on or off. Visual stimulation alone can trigger desire. Women are more like mixing boards, each slider representing a different emotional factor. How she feels about herself, the environment, your tone that morning. even what you said 3 hours ago. Her desire isn't spontaneous, it's responsive. She needs the right psychological atmosphere before her body follows. This is why so many men mistake indifference for rejection. It's not that she's disinterested, it's that she's disconnected. When the emotional current flows, her physical desire follows naturally. When the current dies, attraction cools, even if nothing went wrong. Now, here's where things get interesting. Women are drawn to men other women want. It's the principle of pre-selection. Social validation acts as subconscious proof of value. It's the same way you're more likely to try a busy restaurant than an empty one. You assume it must be good if others approve. In psychology, this is known as social proof. When a woman sees other women interested in you, it bypasses her logical filter. Her brain interprets it as evidence of your worth. The reverse is also true. A man who seems ignored or unwanted triggers silent suspicion. If no one wants him, what am I missing? This is why men in relationships often notice sudden attention from other women. It's not coincidence, it's instinct. Your perceived value rises when others validate it. You become a scarce commodity, and scarcity itself is one of the most powerful emotional triggers. People value what's rare, not what's constant. When you're always available, your presence loses weight. When you become a man with priorities, commitments, a life that doesn't revolve around her, you become magnetic, not because you're playing games, but because your absence creates space for her imagination to work. Desire grows in distance. I once dated a woman who was cold and indifferent toward me. I stopped chasing, refocused on my own life, started seeing friends, hitting the gym, working late. A month later, she started blowing up my phone, texts, calls, questions about where I'd been. I wasn't ignoring her, I had simply moved on. And that movement, away from her gravitational field, made her notice what she had taken for granted. You see, attraction operates on the same principle as economics. Value increases with scarcity. When your time, energy, and attention are abundant, they're cheap. When they're earned, they're treasured. But let's zoom out. The modern world has amplified this dynamic to chaotic extremes. Social media gives every woman instant access to attention. A single selfie can draw validation from hundreds of men. This endless stream of digital approval rewires female psychology. It inflates perception of value and blurs the line between attention and attraction. A like feels like desire, even if it isn't. The dopamine hits trick the brain into believing abundance exists where it doesn't. The result? The emotional marketplace becomes distorted. Average women receive the attention once reserved for the exceptional, and average men receive almost none. The gap widens, expectations inflate, and genuine connection becomes rare. That's why detachment, true emotional independence, has become a modern superpower. When you're not chasing validation, when you can enjoy connection without dependence, you step outside the scarcity game. You become the calm center in a world of emotional turbulence. And in that calm, women sense something they can't quite name: stability without need. But what happens when women, raised in this endless buffet of attention, begin to struggle with choice itself? When abundance becomes anxiety, when freedom becomes paralysis. Choice was supposed to make people happier, but in the modern dating world, abundance has created paralysis. Women today have more options, validation, and attention than any generation before them. And yet studies show they are more anxious, less satisfied, and increasingly disillusioned. Because the brain isn't designed for infinite choice. It's wired for meaningful selection. And when everything is available, nothing feels special. This tension sits at the heart of the modern paradox. Society tells women to be independent, career-driven, self-sufficient, messages that speak to their intellect. But their biology still whispers an older truth: attraction to strength, confidence, and leadership. That conflict between ideology and instinct creates constant psychological dissonance. She says she wants a man who's sensitive and emotionally open, but she feels drawn to the one who's calm under pressure and hard to shake. She claims she wants equality, but deep down, she craves polarity, someone she can lean on without losing herself. That's not hypocrisy. It's the clash between evolution and modern culture. As Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, man is a rope stretched between the animal and the superman. In women, that rope is stretched between their primal coding and their social conditioning. And the tension between those two forces defines much of female behavior today. You'll hear successful women say they can't find good men, but good men are everywhere. They're just not above them in the hierarchies that unconsciously govern attraction. Hypergamy isn't a moral judgment, it's biology. Women are drawn to men who can elevate them in some dimension: status, intellect, confidence, social influence. A woman with a doctorate rarely desires a man without ambition. A CEO rarely dates her employee. It's not snobbery, it's instinct. That's also why the dating power curve flips with age. A woman in her early 20s sits at the peak of her sexual market value. Her choices seem endless. But time changes the equation. As men age and grow into their competence, status, and confidence, their options expand. Meanwhile, female options often narrow, not because they lose worth as people, but because they lose leverage in the marketplace that once revolved around youth and fertility. By the time she's ready for commitment, many of the men she once overlooked have become the men she now wants, but they're no longer chasing. It's a cruel cycle, but it's also reality. This creates what I call the timing gap. When women have the most attention, they want freedom. When they want commitment, attention fades. Men and women peak at different times in different currencies, and the tragedy is that both spend their peak trying to become what the other no longer needs. Here's another paradox. Women crave emotional security, but most men mistake that for financial security. They think a nice house or stable income will make her feel safe. But what women truly crave is psychological stability, the sense that you won't collapse under pressure, that you can handle her emotions without breaking. A man with confidence and composure can make her feel safer than a millionaire with insecurity. That's why strength, not aggression, but centeredness, is so magnetic. Now, about loyalty. When a woman loves, her devotion can be absolute. She'll defend you against everyone, forgive almost anything, and fight for you through storms. But when that emotional switch flips, when she no longer feels safe, cherished, or inspired, the love doesn't fade slowly. It dies instantly. Men grieve in waves, but women often end relationships mentally long before they do physically. By the time she leaves, she's already gone. Men mistake forgiveness for reset. Women forgive, but they never forget. Each unresolved hurt erodes the foundation until one day, the entire structure collapses. That's why she can seem cold after the breakup. She's not heartless, she's detached. Her brain rewrote the story to protect her. What once was love becomes a lesson. Every memory is repainted to justify the exit. It's how the psyche ensures survival. The same rewriting happens with female competition. Men compete openly, women compete subtly. Compliments can carry daggers. Social reputation becomes the battlefield. When a woman says, she's nice, but that "but" is the quiet gunshot of rivalry. They're not being cruel. They're practicing an ancient form of survival, protecting social value through covert strategy. The female social ecosystem runs on perception and alliances. That's why her friends' opinions about you matter more than yours about them. You're not just dating her, you're courting her social tribe. Now, add social media into this mix. The endless stream of curated lives, filtered faces, dopamine notifications. Every scroll whispers, you could do better. Even in happy relationships, this constant comparison corrodes gratitude. The possibility of someone else becomes an ever-present ghost in every woman's mind. Too much choice breeds doubt. Doubt breeds detachment. Detachment breeds discontent. And yet, beneath all of it, the same truth remains. Attraction isn't a choice. It's not something you earn through performance or buy with comfort. It's the spark that comes when polarity and emotion collide. You can't negotiate desire, you can only evoke it. Through your presence, your boundaries, your ability to stay grounded amid her emotional storm. The men who thrive in modern relationships aren't the richest or the most handsome. They're the ones who understand emotional reality. They don't take rejection personally. They don't chase validation. They don't panic when she pulls away or overinvest when she returns. They know the game, and that's why they can choose how to play it or whether to walk away entirely. Because the final lesson in understanding women is this: they don't want to lead, they want to trust your leadership. They test your strength not to destroy it, but to find its edges. They push your boundaries not because they hate them, but because they need to feel them. When a woman says she wants to surrender, what she really means is that she wants to feel safe enough to do so. That's why so many modern men fail. They either crumble under emotional pressure or overcompensate with dominance. The first becomes weak, the second becomes tyrannical. Both are repellents. True strength is calm, not cruel, steady, not stagnant. So here's the revelation you've been building towards since the first minute of this journey. Women aren't mysterious. They're just different. They live in emotional time, not logical sequence. Once you stop expecting them to think like men, everything starts to make sense. You stop resenting their moods. You stop chasing their approval. You begin to see the patterns. And with that awareness, the frustration fades. Because understanding female psychology isn't about control. It's about freedom. The freedom to engage with eyes open, to love without illusion, to detach without bitterness, and to walk away with your power intact. You can't make a woman want you with reason or kindness or gifts. You can only become the kind of man whose presence naturally awakens emotion. That's not manipulation, it's mastery. Once you grasp that, you've learned the hidden rule behind it all. Desire isn't earned, it's evoked. And knowing the truth doesn't make you cynical, it makes you free.